So we're still talking credit and bankruptcy and credit repair. You know, because it's a very difficult time. A lot of people are working hard, still not getting out of debt. Some people, and Kevin Heupel's with me. You see this attorney here. He is a bankruptcy attorney, and we're going to interview him for a reason. And that is, a lot of people just can't make it. It doesn't matter how much you try to repair your credit. You just got in too deep. Maybe an illness. Maybe you got fired. Maybe things beyond your control. And sometimes bankruptcy is a solution. In fact, I really detest some people who try to get you not to go bankrupt no matter what, because you can end up in debt forever. Credit counseling is fine if you have minor problems, but if you're in so deep there's no way out, you can actually do a bankruptcy and recover in a short amount of time. And that's something a lot of people don't want you to know, but you need to know it because, you know, you need to move on sometimes. Just move on. We have with us right now Kevin Heupel, and you run a practice called Colorado Bankruptcy Help.
Correct.
Kevin, first of all, the stigma about bankruptcy. Speak to that and what you have seen. Most people that come to you, they don't want to go bankrupt.
No, 99 out of 100 don't want to be in my office. They don't want to file bankruptcy. They'd like to avoid it. But the reality is they have too much debt. And a lot of times it's a debt that they didn't even think was too much. You know, if your unsecured debt's more than a third of your income, you're losing the ability to ever pay it off. And that's usually a good sign. If you're at the point where you're paying your credit cards only to turn around to use them again, to buy groceries and gas and utilities, and we see that a lot, you are on the path to bankruptcy. Because at that point, you can't pay your debt. You can't live and still pay your debt. You're struggling just to pay the debt. And so the stigma is, you know, people feel really bad that they got themselves in the situation. And they see bankruptcy as a free pass, that it's going to get them out of the debt in 3 months, and they feel guilty about it. And then they worry about, well, then I'll never get credit again. And it's not true. It is reported on your credit report for 10 years. In terms of rebuilding, it takes about 2. And if you rebuild smart, like your experts were talking about, making timely payments, you will rebuild your credit after a bankruptcy.
In fact, I've known people who in 2 to 3 years were completely recovered and had a great score. And it's the law. There must have been a reason why we have bankruptcy laws. I guess it was to get people out of servitude. I don't know what else. I mean,
it is. It's one of the oldest laws around from the 1800s.
To give people a fresh start. You know, and so many people say, well, you know, if you go into debt, it's your own fault and you have to pay it back. But really, sometimes you're sentencing people to a life of misery. And really, what percentage of people do you see that have actually engineered a bankruptcy? So many people, you hear that one person, a lot of creditors like to paint this picture of people that went out and charged up or they planned a bankruptcy. How many people really do that? I mean, in all your years, what do you find?
Less than 1%, maybe 1 out of 100. Have actually planned it where they were using credit cards for a while, getting out of control, and they knew they could fall back on the bankruptcy process and get out of it. Most people wind up in it because they didn't even know it was going to happen to them. It's like you said, they lost their job, their income dropped, they turned to their credit cards to supplement it, then the income came back or it doesn't come back, but at that point the debt has grown so large that they can never pay it back. And interest rates are the biggest killer that we're seeing. We're seeing more people coming into bankruptcy now last month because the credit card changes. The interest rates have gotten so high, they can't make the minimum payments anymore. And if you're at that point, you're at bankruptcy whether you want to admit it or not.
What kind of bankruptcies are you? You have 2 different kinds that you can deal with for an individual.
There's a Chapter 7.
And that's a complete liquidation. Explain
that's a complete liquidation. What happens there is it wipes out your debt in 3 months. There's a trustee appointed by the bankruptcy court to see are there certain type of assets that the trustee can take to pay creditors.
Sure, and as well they should. If you had a giant art collection or if you had a lot of money stashed. For the most part, though, what are you allowed to keep?
$60,000 of equity in your home. It goes up to $90,000 of equity if you're over 60 or have a disability.
Really, 60 to 90,000?
Yeah, so with this housing market, nobody's having an issue keeping their home as long as you pay your home.
Some people want to walk away.
Yeah, and you can walk away in a 7. You get up to $5,000 of equity in motor vehicles if you're single, 10 if you're married, 20 if you're over 60 or disabled. You keep your jewelry, you keep your clothing, you keep your household items, and the most important thing is you can keep your retirement accounts 100%. So the worst case I ever see are the people who take the retirement to pay their debt and they come up short.
And then they have to go bankrupt
And
anyway.
they have to go bankrupt anyway, because had they called me before they've done that, I could have got them out of the debt, and they could have kept all of their
And
retirement
they
accounts.
don't have to use a 401k.
They can use 401, IRA, Roth IRA.
But the bankruptcy cannot take that.
Right. Bankruptcy cannot touch any of those
What about
accounts.
Chapter 13, that for people who might make a little more money and have a little more debt? How does that work?
What you do there is you pay your disposable income, and that depends on how much income you have, how big your family size is, and what type of debts you have. If you're a family of 4 in Colorado, disposable income is after $80,000. But you take out mortgages, you take out car payments, you take out contributions to 401, health insurance, life insurance, child care, and that will reduce disposable income. And so that number ends up being $200. You pay $200 a year for 5 years.
Or a month.
A month, so yeah, $200 a month for 5 years. If it's not enough to pay off the debt, whatever doesn't get paid off gets eliminated.
Now, your website is Colorado Bankruptcy, or is it CO Bankruptcy?
CO bankruptcyhelp.com.
It stands for Colorado.
Right.
CO Bankruptcyhelp.com. Your practice is Colorado Bankruptcy Help.
Right.
CO Bankruptcyhelp.com, and you're on our referral list. The number at referrallist.com, 303-955-7570, and you do initial consultations.
I do. I do them for free.
What happens in an initial consultation? It is all confidential. No one ever finds out.
Right. It's a free consultation. I have you bring your pay stubs, tax return, a rough idea what your debt is. I see what the situation is. I tell you if you're a good bankruptcy candidate, if you are, whether you're a 7 or a 13. And if you're not, I refer you to credit counseling and have you go do that and get out of your debt situation.
And another thing I want to ask you, are a lot of people filing bankruptcy now? Because I know a lot of people feel guilty about it. Are they in good company as far as numbers?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this year, Colorado's projected to have 30,000 filings. It's been increasing every year since 2005. And a lot of it's still the mortgage crisis that happened. A lot of people got buried in homes where they can't afford them.
And then the value went down.
The value went down, and so they're walking away.
Well, there's no way to even refinance them.
No.
That's what I mean. A lot of things are beyond your control. If you find yourself in this position, Colorado Bankruptcy Help, or cobankruptcyhelp.com, it's 303-955-7570, 303-955-7570. I'm going to ask Kevin to stick around a few minutes, too. So we have a number of experts on credit repair, on credit unions, and on bankruptcy sticking around for a few minutes. If you'd like to call 303-MARTINO, and that's 303-MARTINO, we'd love to take your questions. Paula.